Hello, this is Andrew Manby here. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about our next installment in the Domino Volt journey, the second webcast where we're bringing you details of the new functionality which is available today. So next slide, please. One more. I'm actually joined by a great cast of folks who are going to be presenting content today. And we also have a surprise as well. So Yoshimura-san Kenichi is on with us today, and we're going to be talking about some exciting pieces. Jarrett and Marty are the dynamic product management duo, and we're also joined by Ken Kraus today, who's our Volt sales leader for the product, and we're very excited to have him available. And all of us are going to be available for the Q&A section, which is coming later. So let's take a look at the agenda. So here's the agenda today. I'm going to provide some context. Marty's going to take you through the what's new in the 101 or the July 2020 release. I'm going to show you some of the key value propositions, maybe show you some things. Jarrett will follow up with a reminder about the pricing and licensing. There's a couple of changes we're making there to enable some use cases, which was actually one of the biggest things that we were asked for. And then before we get to the Q&A section, Kenichi is going to take you through something that all of us are very excited about, which is, we said to you there are three things in our roadmap for V12 that we wanted to do. One was visual workflow, the second one was mobile, and the third one is really around expanding the integration opportunities with Volt and the rest of the enterprise. So Kenichi's got some exciting stuff to share there. Then we'll do the Q&A. But as always, we will answer all of your questions in the blog that will be posted within a week, and we will make the replay available with that as well. And we'll also make the slides available with that as well. So next slide, please. I think all of us are thrilled and excited about the momentum around Domino Volt and the reaction that we've had from our customers. What's been very consistent throughout is where we started, which is really the mission. We wanted to foster the ability for the Domino platform to have three primary mechanisms to develop applications. Traditional Domino apps through Designer, enable pro-code designers to use things with Node.js and JavaScript, but also the area that we saw the biggest opportunity is in the low-code area. So people who are closest to the business can be empowered to build applications and workflows with either in partnership with IT or with minimal IT intervention. And what we've seen is we've had customers decide to go with Volt because it really enables them to add low code to their arsenal very easily and inexpensively. We've seen, as you'll hear me talk about a bit later, the acceleration factor, whether you're building a new app, a new workflow, or as you'll be able to do, augment what you do with your existing Domino apps is tremendous. And lastly, we're getting net new customers who are building applications for the COVID space or building new applications in general. And the power and the security of the Domino platform has been key to them making a decision for HCL and this great combination. Next slide, please. So to reinforce what many of you have heard already is the use cases for the combination of Domino and Domino Volt are extensive, right? They can be used to build applications internally and externally. They can be around business processes and your workflows, and they really span the gamut of industries. We're seeing them in pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, utilities. We're seeing information services. There's no shortage of types of applications that can be built. And there are some patterns to some of those key use cases. This is not all of them, but applications for doing audit and compliance, enrollment and onboarding, gathering and tracking and reporting, just gathering data, and lastly, doing resource request and approval. And particularly in the era of COVID, enrollment and onboarding and resource request and approval have been very, very popular. Next slide, please. So my last slide here is to take you through, to give you a flavor of what I've said here. So one of the things, we have internal initiatives to use our own products, and the sales team, led by Francois Nasser and Louis Geargay, and also with Ken Krause here, wanted to challenge the TAs, the technical advocacy team, to build some application. So a two-week hackathon was organized. All of the TA team participated in that, and within that, building applications as during that 2-week period has been tremendously successful. You're seeing just some results of some of those applications in the creativity. We had applications that were built right across the world, from hotel reservations, scenarios with links to maps in China, through to apps that actually allow you to give of your time and actually your money to important causes, as well as scheduling more mundane things like organizing trips and events. So really what I'm saying here is the types of use cases you could apply Volt to is only limited by your imagination. And we're hardening some of these, and we're going to be making these available as demo apps, and we're also going to be adding them to the sandbox. So without any further ado, I want to hand you over to Marty and Jarrett, who are going to take you through the next 2 sections of the content. So Marty, over to you to talk about what's new.
Thank you, Andrew. So now the fun stuff, what's new in this release. Before we get into the details, just at a high level, this release is all about 3 key things. The first being unleashing your Domino data. I mean, all of you have investments in Domino, the infrastructure, but also applications and data. You want to leverage and repurpose that data and build off of that investment. You also want to expand the reach of what you can do in Domino Volt. And with new anonymous access and some of the other new capabilities, you're going to see a greatly expanded set of use cases which you can apply this technology to. And then lastly, you want to empower citizen developers as well as IT developers with an easy way to leverage the different REST endpoints that exist in your organization to access information that's in your CRM, your ERP, your system Z or I, pull information in and leverage that, along with Domino data. So you're going to see a bit on that in this release as well. So without further ado, let's get into the details. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is access to Domino data. So when you go into service configuration now, you're going to see a new option, and that option is select from a Domino database. So what you can do is select the database, you can search for it, and you can then select the operation that you want. All right, did you want to read a view, get a list of all the entries in a view? Did you want to read a document? Did you want to get information about different categories? All right, and in many cases, you're going to put some criteria in, and then finally you get your data back and you map that into your application. So with this release, we're introducing read services. In a release not too far from now, we're going to also support full CRUD services. So you'll see create and update and delete added to this, as well as support for rich text and databases which are on remote servers. All right. Along the same thought, accessing data that is in Domino, the release includes some pre-built directory services. So you simply just go to the catalog and say, I want the Domino directory services. And you can see in the picture there are 5 different services which have been defined. And essentially, these services allow you to get information about people. And that's really important when you're building applications, especially workflow applications, because you need to know things like, who does this person work for? Who does this person's manager work for? Because perhaps what I want to do is use that information in something like a role assignment. Right? So this is a very, very important, capability which you need for the product to be useful. It's here now. In the next release, you'll see a people picker widget on top of this. You'll be able to pull that off the palette and do a a look ahead and actually find people and assign them to things. And the use case is really the primary use case that I see with this is finding out who people work for, and then doing a dynamic role assignment. So if you're familiar with the product, you know that workflow is based on this idea of stages, and there's an intersection between a stage and a role, and you determine who's in the role at each workflow stage. So now what you can do is you can dynamically assign people to a role. So if I have a role called approver, I can make that assignment dynamic, and it allows me to build an application that will work for anybody in my organization. If I know who they are, they're authenticated, it'll work for them. So this is my first jumping off point into demos. So let's go over to my browser here, and let's first take a look at I'm going to take a look at anonymous access first. So I have an application, and if you've used the sample applications, you know that this bicycle rental is one of them, right? Now, what's interesting is I'm authenticated, so I'm admin, and if I launch this, oh, I clicked the wrong button, I'm sorry. If I click on this bicycle rental, it's going to say, this is anonymous usage. If you want to continue, we're going to log you out. Well, I don't want to be logged out. So what I'm going to do is just simply go get the URL for this, and let's come over to a different browser and we'll just put this in. All right, so this gives you the opportunity to expose the applications outside your organization, enable anonymous access. So for those people that are not part of your directory, your customers, your prospects, you can do real cool things. You can enroll them in programs, engage them in marketing efforts, offer, new services. It's up to your imagination. And of course, these applications can then have a piece which is all authenticated based on a workflow that starts on that anonymous basis. So that's anonymous access. Now let's go on to Domino. We'll take a look at accessing Domino data. So in this case, I'm going to go into edit mode in this application. And the scenario here, so you can see the app, I've got a table. And what I want to do is press this button and get information about expenses. That information on the expenses is in this Domino database. So here's the view. All right. And then I've got a little section over to the right here. And there's a second part of this demo that says when I click on one of these expenses, I want to see the document underneath that listing in the view. So this is going to show both getting a view and getting a document into a Volt application. So we'll start with the view. We'll click on this button, and I'm going to say when I click it, let's call a service, and that service is going to be from a Domino database. And here I could type in the name, but it's real quick to go and pick. And I'm going to get a list of view entries. And the view that I want is one called expense report. And it's given me some options here, which I'm not going to elect at this point to sort by and filter by. I'm simply just going to take what it's given me back, and I'm going to go over to the right here and look at the fields in the table. So I want to know the category, and then I want to know the subcategory, and then the expense name, and then the expense amount. And I also have an ID for the record that's in that document that's in the view. And I'm going to bring that forward as well into the table. So when I preview this, I click the button, I see that all that information is there. Now, I went ahead and I already built the second part of this Domino Data Access demo. And the way it works is if I click on one of these items in the view listing, I pass the ID. So the ID is actually part of this record. You can see it here. I passed the ID over to this field here. And I'm just showing it for demo purposes. And then there's an on change in this field, which calls the second service, which gets the details behind this. So you can see how you can kind of put together a view and a document underneath and build off of what is there in your Domino data. So let's go on with another demo. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to start with this application. So if you've seen me demo before, if you've been into the sandbox and played around with some of the tutorials, you've probably seen this application. And the beauty of it is that it builds off of a spreadsheet, and you can select a course, and it gets the information. There's workflow behind this. It goes to your manager, they approve. And it keeps track of how many people and the capacity in each course and whether or not you signed up for it. So lots of good interaction between the catalog and workflows built into this. But with Domino Directory Services, we can make this better. With 1.0, what I had to do is put in your name and your manager's name. Well, now what I can do is I can get that information through service. So let's make this application better. So I'm going to go to the name on show event, and it could be the page or the application start or on show. And let's call a service. And the service I want to call in this case is from the catalog, and it's a Domino directory service. So what I want to do is get the user by identifier. You know, we had the app get current user JavaScript function, but that would return the full ID name, which you don't necessarily want. So let's map the current user as an input to this service, and then let's get the display name. That's what we really want. All right, and then while we're at it, let's get the manager name. All right. Now, keep in mind, I'm logged in as admin, but I did put some entries in the directory. So admin works for Andrew. So that's working. But there's another piece to this. You know, now that we know, you know, who you are and who your manager is, well, what about you know, putting that person into the approver role, dynamically putting them into the approver role. So we have a workflow here, and there's a role which was set up called approver in the app. I'm going to change it from closed to open. And what that means is I can dynamically assign somebody to it. All right, and then I'm going to come over to stages. And then I'm going to say when the initiator submits this, what I want to do is dynamically assign a user. And I'm going to use a Domino directory service. And I'm going to search for a user with the name that's in the manager's field. And I'm going to get their user ID and make them a member of the approver role. All right. Now, I can also add to this an email notification. And what you can do is send the email to the approver role. So Andrew is going to be added to this role. He's going to get a notification. All right. Well, that's exactly how I want my workflow application to work. let's back out. I'm not going to do the notification, but let's save this and we'll come over here and deploy it. And what I want to do is, since admin isn't really exciting, I'm going to just copy this and I'm going to come over to my other browser, who's currently anonymous. And this is an authenticated access app. So what I want to do is I want to be Betty Zeckman, right? So you can see that knows this is Betty and Betty works for Ted. So then Betty can select a course, and unlike admin, she hasn't signed up for this one already, and then she can submit it, and then Ted gets a notification, and Ted sees this in his view and is able to then go ahead and approve it. So that is the Domino data access dynamic role assignment and the directory services. So let's move on with some more excitement. Service catalog and custom service definitions. So you now have in the product a way to build a definition for a service endpoint once, put it in the catalog, and then let other mere mortals like myself that really don't know much about the backend API to use it. All right, so here's a way that IT or somebody that's technically savvy can build all these things out that are useful to a team or an organization, and people get to leverage it. So it's kind of build once and leverage by many. It uses the built-in HTTP transport, which is in the product. So literally anything that understands a REST or an HTTP protocol, like a REST service or a web service, you can then build a definition to. So the best way to, I think, get into this is with a demo. And let's go find my service catalog demo. There it is. So what I have is a little application, and this is just more of a technology demo. I'm going to get into what this potentially means in a minute. But what I want to do is invoke a service that gets a token, and in other words, authenticates me with the organization's Salesforce account, and then populates this dropdown. Right, so let's go to the on click of this. And normally you just do this on startup, but the on click gives me a little more demo control. And I'm going to go into the catalog, and you can see everything that's in the catalog shows up here. So there's two services: get a list of accounts from Salesforce and Salesforce OAuth token. Well, I'm going to start with the OAuth token because you can't do anything till you authenticate. And there's no inputs. The credentials about the account, they're all buried into the service definition, which is secure in its server side. So this is really a best practice for accessing something like this with an organizational account. And I'm just going to pop that into the token field, which I have on my form. And then I'm going to click preview, and you can see it gets the token. And I went ahead and I created the second service in this app that says when you get the token, get the list of accounts, and there's the list of Salesforce accounts. So I didn't really need to know anything about Salesforce, and I was able to do that pretty easily. What potentially does that mean? Well, it means that you can build really cool applications like this very quickly. This is all interacting with my Salesforce account. I'm getting a list of customers, I'm getting a list of contacts, products, different SLA levels that we have, and I'm building a quote here, which can then go into a workflow, which further prepares the quote and then off to the customer. So that's the service catalog. Let's continue on. There's just so much good stuff in this release. Fillable PDFs. So many times you're creating an application, and it's desirable to have a PDF or some sort of document of record. So this is very true in transactional scenarios. So the demo that I'm going to show you here briefly is an invoice. So you go ahead and you specify, we'll go take a look at that, specify what you want purchase-wise, and it then creates the invoice and then the PDF. So I've got this pre-populated, just so you don't have to see me typing, or at least that much. We'll just put in some number here and a price, and it calculates the subtotal of the tax, the amount due. So let's click this button, which is the button which invokes the PDF fill service. So this is a template which is part of the app, and I've just created an instance of that template, which is saved locally. You can also save this with the submission document or in a specific file location of your choice. And you can see here that this is what we just put in. All right, so that's PDF fill services. Let's go back and look at a few more things. There's a new JavaScript editor. So for me, this is one of the more exciting things. And we'll look at this in a minute. It gives you the ability to highlight, color code, indent. You've got the object picker. You also have code snippets, which you can instantly add to your application. Those I love. You even got the ability to choose between a light and dark theme. All right. A few others, just to kind of round things out here. We introduced the ability to upgrade an app in place. So if you've got an app which is in production, you don't want to disturb the URL. You want people to continue going to that same address. You don't want to disturb the data that you collected. This allows you to build a new version of that app and just apply all the updates. A Docker download option. So this is major. When you go to FlexNet to download the product, you can download the regular install files. You can also download an image. And with the image, you're given the option to set up a sample organization. And I'm actually demoing from that sample organization. So it's a great way to quickly download and play with the software, learn quite a bit about how it works. Even do it on your laptop. So in this case, Domino is running on my Mac. Some improvements in the text widget. So it's much easier now to deal with images there. And then we've got some new JavaScript functions, which are largely to do with helping you build custom navigation and custom submissions in your forms. And that's really my segue into the last demo that I wanted to show you. So we'll come back to my workplace and let's go find the JavaScript. There it is. So we'll just launch this one, take a look at it. So the first new function, it simply just gets whatever your base URL is. So that's nice if you want to build an app that can run on any domain. You just make that dynamic and you're able to get that. The next function, it builds off of that and it says, okay, now that we know your domain, your base URL, your domain, we'll add the form ID and the application ID, and we'll give you a way to quickly open it. So in this case, I'm opening up the COVID inspection app. Taking that yet a step further, add the record ID. So I want to open up the COVID inspection app, and I want to see a particular inspection that was performed. Right. So here's a document, a submission document in that app. And the last one here is this ability to submit a document and do so without an action button. You could do this before, but there's a much simpler way of just getting the submit action itself. You don't have to use a loop anymore. So this will submit the form. And of course, I didn't want to totally get out of that because I want to show you the new JavaScript editor. So we'll just open up this button. We'll look at the JavaScript in it. And you can see the color coding here. If I wanted to, let's say as an example, look for a code snippet. Maybe I want to call a service. And then I could use the object picker to go find the service that I want. etc. So code snippets, the object picker, the themes, the indentation, it's greatly improved. So that is my demo. So at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to my colleague, Jared.
Thanks, Marty. So I will be taking you through a handful of new changes that we've made to our licensing as part of the 1.0.1 release. But first, I wanted to provide a recap of Domino Volt pricing for those of you who might be new to the Domino Volt world. So next slide, Marty. So just a quick recap on how we price Domino Volt. So and some general information. So in order for Domino Volt to run, you need 11.0.1 for Domino. Domino Volt is a separate part number, and we price it on a per user basis. And in order to purchase Domino Volt, you need to purchase the equivalent number of your Domino licenses. So if you have 200 Domino licenses or CCB licenses in your organization, you'd purchase the equivalent 200 Domino Volt licenses for your organization. And we offer that on a term and perpetual license. And for those who are interested in purchasing, you can purchase at the time of renewal or outside of renewal. And the cost of Domino Volt, especially compared to our competition, is very nominal, and it delivers incredible business value and return on investment. And as always, our BPs and sellers will gladly discuss pricing for your organization. So next slide, Marty. So we have a couple license changes. So the first one I wanted to go through is regarding the complete collaboration license. So as that is the license that is required in order to purchase Domino Volt, either as a user has it or converting over to complete collaboration, we added in the ability for anonymous access. So as Marty mentioned, for Domino Volt, we're enabling anonymous access in 1.0.1. So we've updated the CCB license to allow for that, since it wasn't there previously. So now it allows access for guest users on the Domino server and guest users as anonymous. So now that's in line with the Domino Volt license and enables that feature within the CCB license, which it's tied to. So that's the main change on CCB. And then we have a handful of Domino Volt license changes. So the first one is a new supporting program. So in addition to Enterprise Integrator for Domino, which was included as a supporting program for 1.0, we've added in the HCL Domino connector for SAP solutions, which is very exciting. And we also had some feedback from the 1.0 release from both our BPs and customers about language around the supporting programs. And what you can and can't use it with. So we wanted to provide some clarity around that. So if you have Domino Volt and you have those supporting programs, you are allowed to use those supporting programs not only with Domino Volt, but your Domino servers as well. So we've cleared up that language. And then finally, the additional clause to include anonymous access. So previously on the CCB slide, the inclusion of anonymous access as a clause, we've also done that here with Domino Volt licenses. So users will be able to use that functionality in the product. So those are really the main licenses that main license changes that we've made. So I'll pass it over to Kenichi to talk about integrating with IBM Z and IBMI.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kenichi Yoshimura. I'm a senior product manager at HCL Software, and I'm responsible for the mainframe software portfolio. Today, I'm going to walk you through an exciting extension of HCL Domino Volt to integrate applications sitting on IBM System Z, the mainframe platform, and IBM System I AS400 platforms. When we talk to System Z, and System I customers, we typically get to hear how challenging it is to integrate or extend legacy applications sitting on those platforms. Due to the complexity, many customers develop processes around the legacy applications to extract the data into Excel spreadsheet, and the data is shared amongst the end users via email. Such approach typically leads to more problems in the future. Applications on those platforms are typically written in legacy languages such as COBOL and RPG, which makes it extremely difficult for non-IT person to make any enhancement. One of the primary interface to the legacy application on those platforms is the green screen interface based on 3270 or 5250 protocol. There are many restrictions with the green screen interface, such as the amount of data it can display on the screen. They certainly look different from the typical application we get to see today and requires substantial training for end users. Any changes to legacy application can be a big challenge because we are starting to see shortage of skills resource in the market. As a result, changes can be risky, costly, and very slow process. Despite all of those, we get to meet many customers continuing to rely on the legacy application on System Z and System I platforms. So the question is, how do you enable integration of legacy application into new business application and workflows? Our proposed solution is the combination of HCL Domino Volt and HCL ZIE for Transformation product. Domino Volt's low-code capability allows non-IT professionals to build new applications and business workflows up to 70% faster. It can build applications and business workflow while integrating all enterprise data, Domino apps, SAP, Salesforce, SharePoint, and much more. ZIE for Transformation provides a layer of transformation from green screen-based interfaces to a set of REST APIs. The APIs can be consumed by Vault application to integrate existing capability which are provided by legacy application sitting on System Z or System I platform. In addition to the joint solution of Domino Volt and ZIE for Transformation, we can also offer free quick start services to help you get started with the journey to integrate legacy capability into the new Vault application. We can provide remote assistance to install and configure the product and walk you through the steps to create a set of APIs for your green screen applications. So what can Domino Volt and ZIE for Transformation do for you? Firstly, we can help you solve business problems by building new application or workflow involving legacy applications sitting on System Z and System I platforms. Any screen data can be part of a solution. The best part of our joint solution is that new application can be created while existing users and processes of the legacy application continue to work independently. In fact, existing usage and processes can remain the same as the backup while new applications are deployed. We can also improve the productivity of end users. Rather than working with the constraint of green screen-based interface, we can introduce automation and navigation of multiple screens as needed. We can also introduce additional validation of data into the application to avoid problems. Finally, we can format and consolidate data from multiple screens. Furthermore, it is even possible to consolidate data from multiple applications and systems. With the powerful transformation capability of ZIE for Transformation product, you can easily incorporate legacy application into new business application and workflows. Let me walk you through a scenario to highlight how the joint solution addresses the business problems. We are thinking about a typical banking scenario where credit limit of top customers are adjusted on a monthly basis. The core banking system is sitting on the mainframe platform, and its primary interface remains as a set of green screens. Today, IT staff extract the top customer data from the mainframe application, stores the data in Excel spreadsheet, and send to Wealth Manager for their review. Wealth Manager reviews the data and makes the adjustment. The adjusted data is sent for approval via email. Once the adjustments are approved, IT staff member update the records in the core banking system on the mainframe platform using the green screen interface. The bank recognized this scenario requires business process update because IT has been instructed to eliminate the manual use of spreadsheet to mitigate any data privacy concern of their customers and to protect the reputation of the bank. This is the illustration of as-is scenario of the business process I outlined on the previous chart. You can see the core banking system with the green screen interface being the primary interface. The customer data is extracted by IT staff members and sent for review by Wealth Manager using Excel spreadsheets and email. Once the credit limits are adjusted and approved, the data is sent back to IT staff and records in the core banking system is updated by IT staff member. In this illustration, you can see how data is extracted and shared amongst the end user by spreadsheet and email. This approach can easily lead to many problems because nothing governs the end-to-end business process other than understanding of end users working at bank. It also imposes a significant risk of data privacy exposure in the process. This is the illustration of to-be scenario using the joint solution of Domino Volt and ZIE for transformation. A new credit approval workflow is created using Volt. The new Volt application governs the end-to-end business flow. Appropriate end users are notified and presented with the data they need to perform their responsibilities. Under the covers, ZIE for transformation is invoking the core banking system to retrieve and update customer data accordingly. APIs are provided by ZIE for transformation are consumed by new Volt application. As I mentioned before, existing core banking application is accessed without any change. The new workflow can be developed and deployed in parallel to the existing end user continuing to access the system as is. With this approach, usage of Excel spreadsheet and emails are completely eliminated. End-to-end process is governed by new Domino Volt application, and data privacy exposure concerns are also addressed. This is the illustration of architecture of the joint solution. On the left-hand side of this page, you can see the runtime architecture of the joint solution. The new business application and workflow are developed using Domino Volt. The transformation of green screen application to REST APIs are performed by ZIE for transformation runtime, which can run in any application server listed on this page. Existing green screen application remain unchanged on the System Z and System I platforms. On the right-hand side of the page, you can see how you can develop different components of the joint solution. Volt application can be developed using web-based development interface using forms and other widgets available. Transformation logic and APIs are developed using ZIE for translation plugin for IBM Rational Application Developer IDE. With the joint solution, we are anticipating no change to existing legacy applications.
There's a whole bunch of questions here that I know people are keen to get the answer to it. So maybe we can start with the list. So Jared, I want to start with you. Actually, this came from a number of people, including Bank of Era and also Danelli, which is you mentioned the updates to the license agreements. Where can people find that, and when will that be available, and where is that information currently known to people?
Yeah, so the license for Domino Volt will be posted publicly today for the GA. So that'll be available on the public website. As for CCB, that will be available in the coming weeks. So we'll have that for folks. And I think those are the kind of the two main pieces that people are looking for from the license standpoint.
Great, that's fantastic. Maybe the the related question is someone was asking, will Volt support guest users on Azure AD or Connections Community guests for free? Jared.
Sorry, Andrew, you were cutting out. Can you?
Oh, so I'm sorry. I hope I'm not having problems too. So will Volt anonymous guest user support Azure AD guests and Connections Community guests for free?
So so for Domino Volt, that's part of CCB. So that's something for I know there was a question regarding, you know, externals or clients or suppliers. That's something that we're working through right now to define and will be updated later. But as for connections or Azure, that's something that we'll have to look into, especially around connections.
Okay, perfect. Marty, I have one for you. So when selecting the DominoDB resource and viewing the drop-down list, how is that list generated? What happens when a DB has multiple replicas, either clustered or non-clustered?
So the list is generated based on every database that it sees on that server. We do filter out the Volt NSFs. If a database is on that server multiple times, you know, replicas, it will note that. You'll see the actual you know, path in the parens next to the database name.
Okay, fantastic. Marty, do you want to say a little bit more well, first question is, you know, what version of JavaScript is supported?
What version of JavaScript is supported? Well, that's a good question. I never thought of. I mean, the JavaScript's running natively in your browser. I honestly don't know the answer to that. You know, of course, we load certain libraries in JavaScript in that browser, which are part of the program. But you know, my guess is we're going to support whatever your browser runtime is.
Okay. Another question we had here is, can you say more about the PDF option? Say a little bit more about its functionality.
Yes. So, you know, again, the idea is that you have a fillable PDF that you're going to use as a template, and it becomes part of your application. So you actually attach it to the app. And when it's attached and you go into the service configuration dialog, you're going to see that it's recognized as something that you can fill with a service. So in the fill service, you can then map the fields from your form, the items that you're collecting data from, into the fields in the PDF. And you saw in the demo that I can fill you know, tables from tables, or you know, fields from the main part of the form into the PDF. How you create those fillable PDFs? Well, in many cases, you can already use what's there. If you want to go into Adobe Acrobat or even OpenOffice, you can build these things from scratch. I used Adobe Acrobat to build mine. And then you'll see in the service configuration panel that you do have some options of saving as an attachment to the submission document, having it presented and saved locally, or saving it to a specific file location. And there's another option where you can specify that you want the PDF to be flattened. And what that means is you can produce the PDF and it's no longer a form, it's just a flat PDF which represents, you know, the transaction and is immutable, you know, unlike a form where you can actually go in and change the values. So it's something that was in HCL Leap, and it's, you know, one of those items that we brought over that we're quite excited about.
Yeah. So that's great, Marty. There's a more of a sales question here for Ken. And the question is, they have the, people have access to the sandbox, but what do they do next after that? What's the next step in terms of trying Volt inside an enterprise?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of options for that. So we can work on getting you a trial license that allows you to run it internally, or we can work with our services team if you have a specific app or scenario that you want to test out. We can work with our team to actually build that application out for you to see what it would look like and what it would take. So you can reach out to your sales rep. If you don't know, let us know and we'll reach out to you to try and track that down. But the options are to get a trial license or have us work with you to build an application in one of our environments.
That's great, Ken. Thank you. I know there's other questions in here, but unfortunately we've run out of time to sort of cover them. As I mentioned, actually the slides are available. You can download them. We will make all the questions available with answers in a blog, as well as the replay. What we were suggesting, sort of going back to Ken's question, you can gain access to Volt through the sandbox, which I think right now has been updated. Is that correct, Marty and Jarrett, to 1.01?
Yep.
So you can actually try some of these new features. And also there's a QR code here, which will take you to a link to some videos, which have been specifically prepared by that team, which are tremendous. And you can actually see in detail how that demo scenario that Kenichi talked about was built out. And there's also information about the trial. So I think that sort of concludes the webinar for today. I really want to thank everyone for joining, all of the speakers, as well as Ken for joining us to help answer the questions. We're continuing to be amazed, surprised, and really excited about the opportunity for Domino Volt in the marketplace. Please provide us with all of the feedback that you have. We do pay attention to it. And, I think it's been a great start. So thanks for joining the webinar and look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.